Hello and welcome to Well Woman. It's Sue Lynn, your hormone health coach, and thank you for tuning in. If you're looking for the latest advice on women's health, food, mood, tips, hacks, and all the hormone things, you've come to the right place. This week we are diving heart and soul into the realm of female technology, and we're going to look at how it is revolutionizing healthcare for women. So my friends, it is time to pop your earbuds in, sit back, take in all of the wisdom, and enjoy the show. Today, we're diving into a game-changing conversation about technology, girls, about hormones, and about the future of women's health. For too long, and I'm very sure that you'll agree with me on this, women's health, especially in areas like midlife, perimenopause, has been under-researched, overlooked, and underserved. But that's all changing. Enter into the world FemTech. It's a growing movement, but yes, it's also a term. However, it's a term that's influenced and inspired many women wanting to kind of step into the tech world. And what's happening is we're using FemTech to leverage technology to revolutionize women's healthcare. And chances are that even if this is a new and somewhat alien word to you, I'm sure it isn't, but even if it is, chances are you're probably using FemTech already. From fertility tracking to hormone monitoring to new and improved women's health inventions, insights, even AI. FemTech is already in the process of transforming how you care for your body. And I have one very special woman to introduce you all to today. My guest is not only an amazing, curious, and incredibly talented woman, she's also an accomplished female technology, or FemTech for short, creator. Mayra Hurtado is an MBA graduate who's brought together 2 decades of corporate experience and business development. She's also a public speaker, and she's a consultant based in sunny Singapore, country which has a place very close to my heart. And she's created a groundbreaking women's health startup called Hormony, which gives women the ability to track their hormones during perimenopause. Imagine knowing exactly what's happening inside your body, being more informed, making better decisions about your health and wellness. And Mayra is, quote, on a mission to change the narrative of women's health with a touch of tech and a lot of care. I really respect and I love that for all of us. Mayra is also a mindfulness practitioner and she is a certified yoga instructor. And I noticed that the holistic values really come through in her work. They come through in the way that she interacts with people. They come through in her approach to weaving together technology, health, and community. This is not just someone in a suit sitting, behind a desk. Mayra is a real good woman. Talking with Mayra over the past year or so has definitely opened my mind to looking at technology in a new way. Let's use tech to give us guidance and to help us navigate midlife, to help steer us through with clarity rather than confusion. Let's embrace female tech as a tool to take control of our health and take our power back. And this isn't just about us, of course. FemTech is shaping the future for future generations of women, for our daughters, so that they don't have to struggle in silence like so many women before them. So if you're a midlife woman, if you're in perimenopause, actually, wherever you are in your beautiful life phase, and you just want to understand more about how innovation is changing women's health, then this episode of Well Woman is for you. Get ready to be inspired, get ready to be informed, and get ready to become more empowered. Hi, Mayra.
Hi. Hello.
Namaste.
Namaste.
It's so beautiful to have you with me here on Well Woman because we've been talking about doing this for quite a while now. And I'm super excited for all of my community to get to know you and to know what you do because I think that it's so inspiring for women. But more than that, it's so important for women and for all of our daughters. So, first of all, gratitude to you. So, my first question to you today is you came at this whole sort of area of technology for women, you came at it with about 20 years or more of corporate experience. So you're there in the business world. What was it that made you turn your attention to becoming a female founder in health and wellness? Was there a specific set of events that led you into FemTech? Have you always been interested in women's health? Tell us all about it.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful for the space and also for all the support and guidance because this today is many, many months in the making, if not years, since since life connected us. And I think that's a good segue to say that I don't think I planned to be here when, my career started. And looking back, it's easy to see how every event brought me here at the same time. Um, so, to give you a bit of background, when I was very, very little, my dad got very sick. Now we know that autoimmune disease, many times they're related to childhood or to emotional circumstances, or it could be just a combination of things. And I think my experience growing up being hyper aware about health and the value of health, but also the difficulties of illness, it just made me so conscious about trying to know more. After many years of therapy and doing yoga and going through many processes, now I can understand that potentially what I was trying to do is help my family feel better, help my dad feel better. And that brought me to study yoga, meditation, nutrition. At the end of the day, I don't think my dad managed to be benefit from the learnings, which is often the case when we go through this journey. You never really know who could benefit from your experience. And that brought me to eventually, when I was at the end of my career, or not the end of my career, but my end of tenure in Adidas, where again, everything was about health, wellness, yoga. At some point, I even wanted to drop the corporate world because I wanted to become a yoga teacher and meditation teacher. And actually, a friend of mine told me that she felt now, I mean, now I understand what she was saying, that what my calling was in, I mean, she said it in different words, but basically what she was trying to say is that potentially what I could add more is incorporate with the learnings that I had from the health and wellness industry. I didn't really know what that could lead me to. So eventually, I started having my own health issues, going to end of my 30s. And life, that body starts to change. Nobody really explains you how the process is going to be like. And at that point, one thing connected and led to the other, and this big opportunity came. I connected with my now co-founder, Dr. Kumble, which brought this huge opportunity to look into our own experiences and how we can improve the life of other women through that experience.
When you talk about, your father and having to deal with a parent with health concerns when you're really young, it changes your childhood in a way. And I feel like maybe already then the seed was planted for you to start demystifying health and dis-ease, and then moving into yoga and mindfulness. It's just that connection and that yogic energy, which is so connected with not only yourself, but everything in the universe. So I can absolutely see that you were destined to combine all of your skills and you had the curiosity, which is, I think, the most
Yes.
important thing to have, isn't it? Like if you're going to be a creator and you are a FemTech creator. So if you're going to be a creator, you have to be really curious. And, I'm with you because when I was entering into perimenopause, I started to get really curious about my hormones and what the heck was going on. Like, is this hormonal or not? So yeah, I'm very excited to see also where you go to from here, as the next step. I heard recently in an interview with Ida Tin, who was the kind of the woman who coined this term femtech, female
The mother of
technology.
FemTech.
Yes. She had mentioned that she thought the work she was, well, I suppose the app that she was creating at the time was probably her legacy, but she was surprised to find that so many people, mostly women, of course, really resonated with the term femtech. So I'm wondering, where were you? What were you doing? Where were you at in your life when you first heard this term femtech?
Oh, I don't know exactly the moment, but what I do remember is that when I started having my own health issues, and I do believe the world has an interesting way to put the means in place for you to follow a path. I mean, it's your choice if you want to take it or not, but I think the world puts or the universe puts it there. And I do remember that when I was doing research about my own experience, what that meant, all of that term started to come up everywhere. And I remember hearing about Ida, and I remember hearing about other women like the FemTech Lab that were looking at this space as a new opportunity. And to me, it was just very exciting because on one side, we were already doing a big push on women's health when I was at Adidas. I'll give you an example. When we started 15 years ago working with our team in Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand as well, what we realized is that the women's business for Adidas was like 5% of the overall business. And when we started doing some research, we realized that women are the number one decision makers in terms of expenditure, but also they're the ones that spend more on themselves in terms of healthcare, but we just don't know. So what we did is we did a big push around women's health, the journey, the community base, how do we approach health and wellness, exercising, and that made us improve the share of business from 5 to 30%. We were the region with the highest share of business for women's in Adidas. But the most interesting thing is that what this also brought is that it helped us push the overall business. So yes, we were selling more to women, but we were also selling more to men because a lot of these women bring the business. So with that in mind, when I was doing my own research, because it was it was very much about my own experience and how do I improve my experience and how I improve it for other women. And coming from marketing and business, obviously I went the same methodology to do market research for product development. And when we started looking at the numbers, we just realized that not only the problem was huge, but the opportunity was huge.
Mm.
So we like to call it profit for good in the sense that this business can not only do a lot of good to the users, the members, or the community, it can also generate economic opportunity. So fast forward a couple of years after, we even saw this in the report from the World Economic Forum and McKinsey, where they came up and said, for every $1 that you invest in women's health, you bring back $3. So it's the biggest opportunity for economic development. And to me, it was like, come on, no brainer. We knew that. But it's good that now it's on paper.
Amazing. I'm so fascinated with the emerging role of technology in women's health because, for I've been in practice now for 20 years or so. And it's been very paper based for me. When I started practicing, I would get my clients to take home their menstrual charts and they'd be like filling in all the different boxes. Like,
Right.
yes, I had this
Yes.
symptom. This is when I had my bleed, and this is when it stopped. And so I would pore over these papers and, like put my little markers here and there and highlight various things. And then there came a time where I would be in clinic and I'd be saying to my clients, yes, I'm just going to give you a menstrual chart to fill in so we can keep track of all of your symptoms. And they would say, oh, and I've got it all here on my app. Shall I just email that to you? It was like a light bulb moment. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much opportunity. And the reality is that if they didn't have the app to track their symptoms, they wouldn't have had the information or the data to give me the insights that I could have used in that session. I would have been
Right.
waiting another month for that information to come back in. So yes, I was a little bit late to the game, which I think that maybe some of my listeners might feel like they're a little bit late to the game as well. So how about we start with a bit of an explanation on what FemTech is? Could you give us some examples?
Right. So it's a generally new term. There are places around the world that are ahead of us. And I'm saying us because right now I'm sitting in Mexico and we're actually doing an event around it to start to prop up this sector or this industry. The idea or what FemTech does is to focus on technologies that it can improve the life of women in terms of women's of health in aspects where women are disproportionately affected. So, meaning anything related to reproductive health, it could be related to hormones, it could be related to pregnancy, fertility, it could be related to breastfeeding, mental health. So, there's these specific, not pockets, but areas where women are the most impacted, and we're looking for technologies that can improve it. And what I really like about the example that you did is that two things. Number one, what we see as a trend, obviously there could be men and women both working to deliver solutions. We do see more women coming up with these solutions because they're coming from their own experience, like what you just explained. And I think there's a huge opportunity for more women to get involved in looking for solutions to their day-to-day to improve health. I was just talking to someone, for example, here where in the event that we're organizing for next week, we want more practitioners like you to be there, more nurses, more even business people, because for example, nurses, they see things in and out every day that potentially they can improve with the use of technology. And this brings me to the second point. This is one of the industries where I believe that this is already has product market fit because it is made on the basis of a problem that looked for a solution, not a solution that looked for a problem, which is the definition of product market fit. You already have the consumer, you already have someone that understands how to fulfill that consumer need.
Yeah, so interesting. We had a conversation, I think, about a month ago, and you were talking about some sort of tech that had been designed for women as an alternative to the HPV test. Does that ring
Yes,
a bell? Can you tell me or tell us a little bit more about that one, just as an example?
yes. So there's a couple of very interesting projects. Both of them you could already buy at the pharmacies. One is available in Hong Kong, which is a menstrual pad that is able to detect HPV
Amazing.
with our discharge. There's others. There's a tampon as well. They who can also detect, I believe, STDs and HPV as well from it. There is a lot of work being done as well with menstrual blood, which to me is mind-blowing that we've been having it forever and we've never used it for research. But now there's women doing it because now there's a lot more women in STEM. So I'm very excited about those type of things.
Yeah, that sounds very intriguing. I mean, that like a third of all the questions I ask in my consultations are tell me about your blood. So I'll be the first one signing up for that technology. Absolutely. Was there a technology also that athletes were using or some sort of femtech that was useful for athletes?
Yeah, well, the test that we use for cortisol test was originally developed for
Yes.
athletes.
Right. Yes.
A
We need
rapid saliva cortisol test was originally developed for athletes, football players or soccer players, if you're in the US. It also rugby players, which is big on your part of the world.
absolutely. Not me
Olymp
personally, though. I just have to say it's probably not my game.
right?
But yes.
Olympics, Olympics teams as well, but mostly men.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is cortisol, and I know you have an amazing episode about cortisol, which we love. We love to promote. It's something that anyone, men, women, kids, adults, we all have, and it's such an important part of our menstrual cycle and our well-being. So that's how we, on top of that, develop what it is now, Hormony. So the platform for hormone testing.
Mm, yeah, we have to talk about your app and the cortisol testing. And it's probably one of the things that I most frequently test in clinic, because I think that we're all very affected by survival drive. It's is the world that we live in at the moment. But I want to first circle back to you were talking before about the World Economic Forum and how they had I'm going to quote something here. Um, I've got it written down. Yes. Okay. So, one of the things that you had mentioned was that the World Economic Forum had published an article. They'd suggested that improving women's health can add $1 trillion to the economy. $1 trillion. Okay. We don't often hear about those sorts of figures. Um, wow. So does that highlight the fact then that women are living longer, but not necessarily better, for a figure like that? And so why has it taken so long for us to actually start moving on some of this technology? Because clearly there is, as you said, this need in the market for it.
Right. Well, I think the list of whys is very long. It's a mix of circumstances. And the thing is that it's not only that women are living longer and unhealthier, but also women are the very often the ones that take care of the family. They often work. They also take care of the elderlies. So all of this contributes to economy as well. So it's not just them as a individual consumer, but it's also the ecosystem around them. And
Mm.
often, when you have communities, you see that women are the ones that tend to get communities together, which becomes even more important when women start going into the role of mentors, or when we are starting to go into our late 30s, early 40s, 50s. At that point, women are now in the stage of, I like to call it the Yoda masters that are teaching the new
I love
generations the
that.
lay of the land.
Yes.
And actually, Dr. Mosconi talks a lot about this changes that happens in the brain, in a woman's brain, to be able to transition into this new role. So imagine if that's the role, but they're not in good health, it's
Yeah.
impacting twice or three times in terms of economic
That
development.
is so interesting. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Mosconi as well. Yeah, the work that she's doing was just like a light bulb switched on. Like, oh my gosh, that's why I've got mental fog. That's why I'm getting stressed out and irritable about everything. My brain is literally recalibrating in
Right.
midlife.
Yes.
Um, yeah, that's a huge thing. So the funding aspect of it, then, you know, we all pay our taxes, but not a lot of funding goes into women's health. We with our government, it's just pledged over $500 million into women's health over the next few years, the next 5 years. which is very exciting. So I would imagine there's quite a bit of FemTech, on the way in Australia. But what is the funding like? So give me an idea of the landscape of funding for technology in health. What goes to women and what goes to men?
Well, let me put it this way. Imagine that there's $10 available for funding in tech in general. Out of those, potentially $2 goes into women's health. Um, and out of that, so you're basically saying that, or we cannot say there's only two women creating in women's health. So basically, if we assume that five women and five men, because we're 50-50 in this world, innovating in this space, then you have five women trying to get those $2.
Right. Oh gosh. It's cutthroat, I would imagine.
So there is very unfortunate that many really great solutions are probably never going to see, or they're never going to get to the
Mm.
people that need them. And it's mostly because there are some difficulties in the way that FemTech companies get evaluated, because it ranges from everyday products like period products like menstrual cups, etc. So low technology in a way. I mean, some of them have very good technology, but let's call it like that, just so we compare it with maybe diagnostics for cancer or devices, which tend to have much longer development time and much more investment required to do that. So
Mm.
I think we're still at a stage where there needs to be a better grasp on how to evaluate all these projects to make sure, because the consumer is there, but how do we support all of these innovators to get the product on the consumer's hands? There's still way to go. There's probably going to be a consolidation, but that we're going to lose a lot of really good players along the way.
Yeah, that's a real shame. And that sort of funding, like that two out of 10 sort of possibility of funding, is that startups or does that then cross over into clinical research? So, certainly if we look at the number of, we talked about this, a number of research papers that are considered impactful by the Australian Menopause Society, and it was something like 5 for the last year. And the mind boggles at what do we do with 5 studies? We need 500 studies, to really start making a difference. So does that funding then translate into clinical research, or is it literally just it's the startup companies, it's the tech companies?
Well, I think it's a mix because you need to do a lot of clinical research for many of these companies to be able to progress. And I'll just put it, the menopause is a great explanation. If you go to PubMed and research fertility, and then you research menopause, we have something like 10 to 1 in terms of research. But I'm not saying 10 to 1 papers. I'm saying like 10 million versus, oh no, well, 10,000 versus 1,000. Let's put it
Got
that
you.
way.
Yeah,
So
got
it's
you.
a huge, it's a huge, and then if you compare, like menopause is something that you have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way around it. But then you have
Half the
other things,
population. Yeah.
half of the population, we're all going to go through it. We're going to be on it for like a quarter of our lifetime. And then you compare the amount of research that goes to um, things like erectile dysfunction, very important. And still, the amount of investment, but still, it's the amount of people that could suffer from it versus menopause is not going to be the same. And the amount of investment
Mm.
that goes one to the other is not proportionate to it.
We need to see the scale starting to shift because they've been way out of balance for way too long. So then, is that partly what made you move into developing technology for perimenopause, or was there something else that? that happened for you? Or was it your personal journey with hormone health in the
Honestly,
midlife?
I don't think I thought about all of this in very much detail, to be very honest. I I like puzzles. So in my previous job in Adidas, what I really like is puzzles, fixing things, creating processes, researching consumer trends. So it was just like a very natural process for me where like, okay, we have a problem. Let's research the problem. Let's put the pieces together. For me, it was just very practical. Um, and it was mostly based on my experience going into my late 30s, where I started gaining weight. I gained like 10 kgs. I couldn't explain it because I was eating the same. I exercised a lot. I had a lot less energy. I had trouble sleeping. I started having migraines. Never had it before. And that's when I started seeing or looking for solutions, and I saw all kinds. I even had an MRI done for my migraine. And it wasn't until a nutritionist, which I think is super interesting, what you mentioned about the cortisol test. Nobody asked me to do lab
Mm,
tests to start, but specifically not cortisol test. And now when I talk to specialists, or let's say to healthcare practitioners, because I speak to all kinds, the ones that always ask for a cortisol test are the ones looking at women's in perimenopause, the ones naturopaths, people that are looking into more nutritional, natural solutions, nurse practitioners. The ones that are maybe looking at the more functional way, they always ask for cortisol. So clearly they were onto something.
how long did it take from the time when you started to notice changes in your body and mind to when you got to that nutritionist and you did that cortisol test? And that must have been an amazing, insightful moment for you. How long did it take to
eight
get there?
like half a year, 8 months.
Ah,
So I've
yes.
been struggling for maybe 3, 4 years with symptoms I didn't know what they were. When I saw her, she did the nutrition plan, checked my hormones to start with, because I never heard of any of this. She made a nutritional plan with supplementation, stress management, explained to me about my cortisol spiking, my estrogen. So I was having estrogen dominant because of my cortisol.
Mm.
Um, and then after that, within like maybe 8 to 10 months, I lost about 8 kgs out of
Yeah,
all the
amazing.
inflammation.
I love these stories of, working with someone who's really like they know what they're doing in that field, and you see the client or you see the individual just transform their lives. Um, so looking back then at your younger self as you were starting on this journey, is there any advice you would have given to her about what was coming, what was lying ahead in midlife?
Well, I think I became a lot more appreciative of growing older. I think when I was younger, I was very scared of going into my 40s, 50s. I used to say, "Oh, I'm gonna be done by 50. Or by 40 first, and then by 50, I'm done. I'm not going more than that." Um, and then you realize actually 40 is very young. I'm having a really good
Yes.
time right now.
Thanks, Myra. I'm still a bit ahead of you. Thank you.
It's actually like this is the prime 40, 50. It just gets better and better.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I always kind of thought there was like a cutoff point, but I think that's societal conditioning to a degree. Like
That's it.
you get to an age and then suddenly you're invisible. And I'm realizing now, I turned 50 last year, but I'm just realizing no, that's not how it is at all. In fact, I feel healthier, I feel fitter, I feel like I've got more love to give.
Right?
Now I'm in my 50s. So, I'm kind of like, yeah, bring it on. I'll be here in another decade, hopefully. Still going on and on about hormones, but I'll be happier, I'll be wiser. So that's all good. And speaking about getting wiser, etc., I was looking up a little bit of information about you, doing a little bit of sleuthing, and I found that you had written a daily gratitude journal for women. And, this is just another aspect of how your holistic training and energy comes through in everything that you do. And also your card deck, which is so beautiful. And I'm going to share this with you all, everybody. So I'll put all the links below if you want to get your beautiful hands on a set of cards that Mayra has designed.
With you.
With a little bit of help from yours truly. And it's designed for women going through perimenopause and their partners. So let's talk about this card deck. Tell us what it is, what it's called, and how it can help women to navigate perimenopause.
Right. So one of the things that we came across when we're going through this process was that, well, first of all, women were not educated. But then what starts happening is that we go into our relationships without the information we need to have conversations. And because of this conditioning, like you're saying, we're thinking, oh, we're crazy, it's hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all of this inner dialogue that has been implanted there, but it's not real, it's not ours. And then that impacts relationships, impacts often not only our partner's relationship, but many of us might have kids going into their teens as well through their own hormonal changes at the same time. And we just don't have the language to have those conversations. And we see that 40%, a lot of women, when they're going into their 40s or couples, they end up breaking up because they just don't have the language to do that. And when we started talking to some of our partners, our investors who are men, one of the things that came through the conversation is, how else can I help? How do I have those conversations with my partner? What can I do about it? Help us have those conversations. And from there was that we came up with a conversation card. On one hand, supporting women and their partners to have the conversation about it, how they feel about the process, but also helping them learn about what hormones are, about what perimenopause is, and just try to make it fun and light and easy to discuss.
Yeah, that definitely comes through, even with the graphics that you've chosen to go with. It's everyone can relate to them. I mean, they're really sweet, but also they've got their own character about them, and I can imagine that you were sitting there really trying to think, how would I portray estrogen? Like what are the qualities of estrogen? Or how would I portray cortisol? It's quite sweet. Giving a face to the hormones.
Right, exactly. So we got a designer, she's amazing, and I told her, okay, so we tried to reimagine what they will be like as individuals. What are the characteristics? What do they help you with? What color they would be? What would be their personalities? What could be their names? And on the basis of that, I basically gave her, okay, this is going to be cortisol. And this is going to be blue. And then she would go and create a character. And it was such a wholesome process. I'm going to share with you the drawings that she did, like the initial drawings. And what she did is literally draw it by hand. Everything is drawn by hand and then animate it. And that was the basis of the card game, with the idea of making it more tangible, more easy to understand, because at least on my side, I did not know why cortisol was important, what is the role of estrogen or progesterone. I did not know that they actually work in cocktail. Like they need to dance together to make the symphony sound good.
Yeah.
And if cortisol is dancing too much and our estrogen is coming down because we're going through perimenopause, then there's nothing to kind of balance the excitement of cortisol, and that usually is what can throw us off. So we try to play with the storyline, basically.
And cortisol was the so the initial saliva test that you chose to go with your app, Find Hormony. So I mentioned this in the intro, everybody, that Mayra is a female technology creator. She's created this app called Hormony. Tell us a little bit about this app and about, I guess, how it's going to help women to understand their hormones better, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? We want to learn to understand, and then we can learn what needs to be regulated.
Right. Well, I mean, I would love to say that I'm a creator, but the reality is that the scientists are the big brains behind it. I just tell the stories of what they build. And the main idea, what we really wanted to do with it, is to put information on the hands of women. So being the ability to access this technology wherever they are, as long as there's a cell phone tower you can test, get the results in minute. It's done by saliva, so it's less invasive, but it's also the proper method of testing is actually saliva. It's just that in the past, saliva testing was not accessible, but with the advances in technology, that just opened an opportunity for us. And with that, we also allowed to bring more data into the mix, because one of the biggest issues is that you probably all know a little bit about this, but women were not part of clinical trials until the late 1990s. So many of the medication that we take has actually not been tested properly on women. And then if you throw in things like different ethnicities, different lifestyles, different even geographic locations, there are just a lot of parameters that we don't know why things work or do not work. And we just want to, on one side, help that individual person, but also as a collective beings have more information to produce more informed outcomes.
And what made you call it Hormony?
Well, we started with the name Prelude Health, which is the registered name of our company in Singapore. The reason came, we got inspiration from an author that we admire, Nikki Key. She's a scientist, researches hormones in athletes, well, female athletes, dancers. And it's one of the books that we read at the very beginning, Dr. Kumble and I. And one day we were trying to find a name. So we opened the book and it was the first word on her book. We're like, let's look for a name in this book. And the first word was prelude. And we're like, it makes total sense. Prelude is the prelude to a new stage of life. It has this music, again, this play with dancing and sounds. And then when we were trying to come up with a name for the product itself, it was just such an intuitive thing of hormonal harmony, again, playing with this dance of hormones, having to do it together and be in harmony so we can feel better. It's like a symphony.
Yeah.
You need everybody playing the same tune.
It's the perfect name. Yeah, I can just see all these like midlife women screaming at the skies, Hormony now.
We need harmony. So that's why our website is called Find Hormony.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And so on the app, then you can organize your saliva tests. At the moment, you have the cortisol one, which comes all beautifully packaged and ready to go. Do you have to be tech savvy though to use Hormony?
Not at all. It's very simple. You take a saliva sample with a tube that collects, you put it in your mouth, it has a sponge. And with that, you put it into a liquid that separates the saliva from the hormone, couple of drops on a strip, kind of like a pregnancy test or a COVID test. It's just a simple strip. You'll get two lines on the strip. The difference is that when you're looking at COVID or pregnancy, you just want to know, I have it or I don't have it. In this case, we want to know how much of that hormone is
Absolutely.
present.
Yes.
And this is because everybody should listen to the cortisol episode. But in summary, cortisol spikes in from the morning to the middle of the day and then has to come down. This allows us to get out of bed and then allow us to actually sleep. And when this curve is disturbed, we might have trouble getting out of bed or going to sleep at night. So what we want to know is once you have the strip, you take a photo of the strip with your phone, the algorithm in the app will give you the value and then tell you if you're in the normal range and give you some recommendations that you could either follow on your own or take to their practitioners to help you fine tune and talk you through the outcomes.
Yeah, it's a home test kit with more like value added. Yeah.
Because what we realize is that many women, most women would not have the luxury of a 1 hour appointment. And it's just so much to learn. So in my experience, I was very lucky because I think she spent over an hour and a half explaining everything to me. So what we want is for women to have the information to understand themselves, their journey, and have someone that can help them ensure that it's a sustainable change, the changes that we have to do.
Mm, mm. And there are more different types of tests as well, right, on the horizon. It takes time for that development to come through, but you've got a vision for this.
Right. We've already have other tests in development as well. So we are aiming to have them available by the end of the year. So we can have the full panel, testosterone, FSH, LH, estrogen, progesterone as a start. But I know you also mentioned the HEA, which we would love to start researching as well. So that's what we have in our vision.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. And it's going to help so many women. Just thinking of all the women that I've seen, even in the past few weeks, who are a little bit mystified by what's happening with their symptoms and where they're coming from. This is very important work that you're doing. So we've got everything from period tracking apps to testing pads to devices that we can use. All this femtech. What's on the horizon in the broader femtech realm? What's coming in the future, do you think, for women?
I think two things. There's a few things, but I will start with these two things. I think more information and more data so we can have better options for better outcomes. It could be from new treatments, new medicines, new protocols. So I think more data can give us more answers. Also, I think there's more at-home support, given that there's scarcity of practitioners in many parts of the world. Having a lot of these solutions going to the patient can allow more people to have access to different types of solution depending on, it could be anything from pelvic floor health, incontinence, it could be breastfeeding, it could be even breast cancer prevention, diabetes prevention. So I think there's a set of there's just so many opportunities just of things that can help women either prevent or solve or help to go through any of these conditions.
Yeah, just having the knowledge, like having the education. You're coming back to the fact that we have such minimal education going through high school. So hardly any at primary school. It's a little bit traumatizing, perhaps, for young kids to be learning about their bodies. And then we get to high school, and, it's more important to learn about the Second World War than it is to learn about, what you're trying to deal with when you're having a really painful period. And then we get to parenting. Like there's no education on parenting. There's no education on having to mother young children and look after your aging parents at the same time. It's just so many aspects of our health that we are all impacted by, that we're kind of we're in a dark room trying to find a dark cat, that old philosophy kind of analogy. We don't even know where to start. So maybe we start with an app on our phone. I mean, most of us have access to a phone, and then we start getting educated.
Right.
Amazing.
And I would say that the issue is not just for women, because right now we know that women are more prone to autoimmune. Not that they're the only ones, but they're more prone. And then we know that men are more prone to autism. That we know, because now we know also a lot of women have not been diagnosed. But we just don't know why. And the fact that we only have 50% of the data or the research done on men not only impacts the women, the solutions that we would give women, but it also doesn't give us enough information to understand how to solve men's health issues. So we really, really need to bring, again, the other piece of the puzzle to the equation so we can solve for both. So it's really, really a human experience perspective, not just gender.
Yeah, really good point. And for future generations, for our children, we want to create a world where they feel, I guess, they feel more conscious, I guess, of their bodies and their health, and they strive towards being healthier, like healthy, good people. So this has been such an amazing talk. Thank you so much for joining us, because it must be late where you are right now. What time is it there in Mexico?
7:30 p.m. We still good. Very early.
Early for you. Like, I heard that's how they do it. It's South America. They're all very late. It's been so wonderful chatting with you, Mayra. Thank you so much. And on behalf of all the women who listen to Well Woman, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your beauty with us today.
I just want to also thank you, because a lot of this journey has been possible because you've given us support and you believe in us. And I mean, for the past years that you've been in this journey, I think we have valued that. And today, giving us this space to bring the message forward, not only because of the product. I mean, we want women to know about it, but I think what we really want women to know is how to take care of themselves, and that going through perimenopause is completely normal. It can be a beautiful stage of life if we make it like that. And I think you giving us that space to bring that message, it's a big thing for us. So we appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. Like, you're welcome back anytime. We can talk about what you're doing, like, till the cows come home.
I can talk about hormones all day. Not like you, but I can ask questions. I can ask a lot of questions.
Curiosity, right? Like, that's like what we all want in this world. Curiosity. I love it. Thank you, Mayra. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody that has listened to this podcast. And we really appreciate being part of your community.
Thank you for listening to the Well Woman podcast. The information, opinions, and advice in this podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice, and it's for general information and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast may not always be those of the host. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon in another episode of Well Woman.
Take care. Have a lovely day.